day of Chanukah, 26th day of Kislev, right? But nevertheless, they established Chanukah on the 25th day of Kislev when they found the jug of oil. Then, so we have like this. So we have Chof Dal. According to Dal Rebbe, Chof Dal, Kislev was when they won the war. Nitzochin HaMalcham. The victory of the war was on the 24th day of Kislev. Chof Hey is when they found Hak HaShemen, the jug of oil. And the 26th day is when the miracle began, that it started to burn for 8 days. It could only burn for 1 day, and it burned for 8 days. So when did the miracle begin? When did they see clearly the miracle that the oil is going to burn, is burning more than a day? That was the following day. So this 26th day is when the miracle that it's beginning to burn for 8 days. So the Rebbe explains it. How come we make a big deal about the 25th day of Kislev when they found the jug of oil? No, so first the question is that the Rebbe asks that seemingly the main thing was the miracle of the war. That without winning the war, we had nothing. So that should be the main thing. So why is the big deal about the jug of the oil? So the Rebbe explains because when they found the jug of oil, that revealed to us retroactively that the victory of the war was also a miracle, because the victory of the war was not an open miracle. It could be rationalized. When you win a war, very smart, they did surprise attacks. And so when they found the jug of oil, that revealed to us that the war on the previous day, 24th day, was a miracle. And that's why the main thing that we celebrate is the jug of oil. Now, but what about this that it burned for 8 days? Because it was already inclusive in this that they found the jug of oil was already inclusive of this that it burned for 8 days. Why? Because at the time when they found the jug of oil, there was already evidence, it was clear that a miracle was going to happen. Why is that? Because when they found the jug of oil, why did Hashem make such a miracle? It was obvious to them that Hashem made the miracle in order that they should be able to do the menorah, use kosher oil to light the menorah, and it would take 8 days till they got kosher oil. So it was already obvious at the time they found the jug of oil that it's going to be a miracle for 8 days. So in other words, the miracle, so this, that they at the time when they found the jug of oil, and that's Chanukah begins on the 20th day, that's already inclusive of the 8 days. That's why there is no separate Yom Tov following from the 26th day, because the fact that they found the jug of oil, they already included the miracle for the 8 days that's going to burn for 8 days. Now, there is a discussion, which we're going to discuss now. Why is Chanukah 8 days and not 7 days? So, in other words, we're stepping aside now. We're saying there's discussion in halacha. How come we celebrate Chanukah for 8 days and not for 7 days? The miracle of the oil that was for 8 days was really only a 7-day miracle, because the jug of oil could burn for 1 day and it burned for 8 days. That means the miracle really happened only 7 days. So the first day really there was no miracle. So why do we celebrate the Chanukah for 8 days? It should only be 7 days, right? Get the question? So there's many answers. One of the answers is because 1 day is for this that we won the war. Celebrating in the Tzachim HaMelchama. So 1 day for this that we won the war, and 7 days for the miracle. Some explain 1 day is because we found the jug of oil. Because first we found the jug of oil, and then the miracle is that it burns for another, one jug of oil can burn for 8 days, so it's a 7-day miracle. So 1 plus 7 is 8. It's another way. And then we have the answer of the Beis Yosef. Beis Yosef gives a very interesting answer. He says that the reason why we also celebrate the first day, and it's interesting, he doesn't say anything about that they found the jug of oil. He just says, because even on the first day, there was also a jug of oil. Even on the first day, there was already a miracle. What was the miracle? Even on the first day, the oil could burn for 1 day. Even the first day, there was a miracle. What was the miracle? He says, because when they filled up the oil, the jug remained full. They had a jug, they filled up the cups of oil of the menorah, and the jug remained full. So the first day was a very miracle. Yeah. Another way of explaining it, he says, that the jug emptied out, but the next morning, when they came to see, they lit it in the evening, the afternoon, before the day was over, and the next morning they came, the cups were still full. So there's already a miracle in the first day. Now, there's another way of explaining it. Another way of explaining it is that the miracle was in the quality of the oil. Quality of the oil, which is that the oil burned down only an eighth every day. So already in the first day, it was already a miracle, because the oil that was enough for 1 day, it only burnt up an eighth of it. So it's already a miracle the first day. Then the Rabbi Yosef gives another answer. The Yosef says that they divided up the oil into 8 parts. They divided up the oil into 8 parts. So every day was a miracle. So the question is, but you can't, how could you rely on a miracle? That's the question that all the commentaries answer. You can't rely on a miracle. The Rebbe explains in that Maimah that because when they found the jug of oil, it was very obvious that it's going to be a miracle. So it was very obvious when they found the jug of oil that it's going to be a miracle. So it wasn't them relying on a miracle. It was obvious that Hashem made this miracle that we found the jug of oil so it could burn for 8 days. So now they're dividing it up into 8 parts. That's not called relying on a miracle. Now, according to the Rebbe, it seems you could say that the reason why the miracle, why it's 8 days and not 7 days, because the Rebbe explains that when they found the jug of oil, it's already inclusive of the miracle. When they found the jug of oil, it's already clear that it's going to be a miracle. It's going to burn for 8 days. So it's really like one thing. So perhaps according to the Rebbe, you can explain that's why the miracle is 8 days, because when some explain just the fact that they found the jug of oil. But the Rebbe, it goes beyond that. The Rebbe says when they found the jug of oil, it was already clear that it was going to be a miracle. So already in the first day, the jug of oil was already giving us the message that it's going to be a miracle. The Rebbe also explains that how could it be that they performed the mitzvah of lighting the menorah in the base of Mikdash with this oil, which by nature could not burn. In other words, it seemed to be, it's not natural for oil to be able to burn for 8 days. And that actually focuses on the answer that the Yosef says, and the other answer, that the oil did not go down and burn, and the next morning was still full. So the oil was not being consumed. So it was fire burning, and it wasn't being consumed. So the question really is that you cannot, the Teves says you have to use olive oil. And if we say that this oil was not being consumed, a miracle happened, that means it wasn't really olive oil. Because olive oil by nature is going to be consumed. So how could we say that you performed the mitzvah with using this supposedly olive oil when it's not really olive oil, because olive oil by nature, when you burn it, it's consumed. And the Rebbe explains that the way it burnt in a way that part of the miracle. It was similar to the miracle that they had in the base of Mikdash with the Aron, with the Ark. The Holy of Holies, in Kodesh Kodashim, they had the Aron, the Ark. So let's say, I believe the width of the Kodesh Kodashim was like 20 cubits. I think that's what it was. So the Aron was 2.5 arms long, so it took up an amount of space. Now from here till here, if this was the Ark, if this was the Holy of Holies, it was 20 cubits. Now when they measured from here until the Ark, it was 10. Then they measured from the other side of the Ark till the wall was also 10. So the numbers didn't add up, because from here to here was 20. then from here, so one side of the ark was 10, from the other side of the ark, the world was 10, so the ark did not take up any space. But the miracle, but the ark did not take up any space. So, but the ark did take up space. The ark had to be a precise measurement, precise size. And nevertheless, it didn't take up space. So it was two opposites in the Holy of Holies. The ark took up space, but at the same time, it didn't take up space. And the Rebbe says that was the same miracle of the Menorah. That at the same time that it was burning the way olive oil burns, because if it doesn't burn like olive oil, you're not doing the mitzvah. Teves says have to use olive oil. So what in fact olive oil? It was actually burning. And it was being consumed the way olive oil is being consumed. But at the same time that the olive oil is being consumed, the oil did not go down. So it's a very interesting idea, which sounds a little strange. But that was the miracle. Every miracle is strange. Just like the miracle of the Holy of Holies doesn't make any sense that the ark didn't take up any space. What does it mean? Yeah, it didn't take up any space. Saying the same thing with the oil. The oil was burning like regular oil. It was being consumed. That's how oil burns. Just like the ark takes up space. So the oil is being consumed. But at the same time, the oil didn't go down. The oil stayed. The oil did not go down. Never says this was the miracle of the later. This was the miracle how the oil burned the 8 days. Now, another interesting thing that I want to share with you, and that is in the Al Hanisim. In the Al Hanisim that he's saying davening, the Al Hanisim is primarily to thank Hashem for the miracle of the world. Now, even though the main theme of Chanukah, why did they institute Chanukah was for the miracle of the oil, but nevertheless, we also thank Hashem for the miracle of the war. And it says even when we light the candles, the lights, it's also to thank Hashem for the miracle of the war. But the Chanukah was enacted because of the miracle of the oil. So in the Al Hanisim specifically, in the Almidah, it's mainly about the war. So in the Al Hanisim, it says over there, so this is what we say. Al Hanisim, thank Hashem for miracles. And then we say, Masarta Ibrahim, Yad Chaloshim. He gave over the strong. Masarta Ibrahim, he gave over the strong, Yad Vehen Chaloshim of the weak. Then we say, Ve'avim, when he gave over the many, the masses. The many Greeks in the hands of Atim means few, Ma'at, a little bit, few, in the hands of the few Jews. In other words, there's only a couple of thousand Jews fighting, and there's thousands and thousands of Greeks. And then it says it's a name. He gave them those who are Tameh in the hands of those who are pure. Greeks are Tameh and we're pure, Jews. Then it says, with a Shoyim, Yad Tzadikim. So it says with a Shoyim and the wicked in the hand of the righteous. Then it says with Zayden means intentional. Those who transgress the Torah intentionally. The word mazid, intentional. He gave them over the Yad, Beiske. In the hands of those who are burning. Again, I said today there is a term used in Allah in the title for souls who transgresses intentionally. So this, as we assume now that Zayd is referring to the Greeks, so Zayd means those who are intentionally going against Hashem, and he gave them over to the hands of those who are involved learning the Torah. So the question over here is, it never asks that we can assume that the Amar Nisim is a description of all the miracles. It's describing the miracles that took place with the war. But thank Hashem for the miracles that happened during the war. They're saying the tremendous miracles. He gave over the mighty, the great of the mighty in the hands of the Chamash, in the hands of the weak. He gave over the many, many Greeks in the hands of the few Jews. It's all a description of the miracle. They're saying that he gave over those who are Tamei in the hands who are Torah. That's not a description of the miracle. He's just saying, he's describing the Jews are Torah, the Greeks are Tamei. How we assume that if the Al Nisa begins with the words, and for the miracle, if you look in the Siddur, it says the Al Nisa for all the miracles that happened to our ancestors in those days, in this time, and then we're saying that when we start describing, what happened, and he saved us. The Rebbe says it must be that this is a description of the miracle that took place. How is this a description? And there's many different answers that the Rebbe rejects. And the Rebbe explains like this. That in the times of the Yevanim, we all know that there were many Jews that joined the Greeks, called the Hellenists. They joined the Greeks. Some were forced, but a lot of them, they got excited about their way of life. They really, they got an appreciation for the Greek life, and they joined them. A lot of Jews joined them. Actually, the majority of the Jews became Hellenists. Not like we think that, the Jews had tremendous Mesiras Nefesh times of Chanukah. Yeah, they did, but only a minority. The majority joined the Greeks, which means they joined them and they helped them. They gave them inside information. They were spies for the Greeks. They made it all the more difficult for the Jewish people. The Rebbe says when we say Tmei b'Yatmeim, we're not referring to the Greeks. Tmei does not refer to the Greeks. The term Tomei and Torah, pure and impure, does not apply to non-Jews. That term is a term that's specifically used to Jews. Tomei, Torah. Actually, according to Halacha, a non-Jew that touches a dead body does not become impure. A Jew becomes impure, non-Jew doesn't. Because impurity follows purity. Impurity, since explains that impurity gets its life, its energy from purity, from Kedusha. So that's why a Jew, you get it in the morning, it gets legalized because the whole body's tummy at night. Get it in the morning, it only stays in your hands, not by non-Jew. So the terminology, Tomei Torah, does not apply to non-Jews. So it never says Tomei Torah is referring to the Hellenists. That Hashem gave over the Hellenists into the hands of the Jews. When he gave them over, not that the Jews went to kill the Hellenists. It means he gave them over and they were able to be victorious. That despite the fact that the Hellenists were helping the Greeks, it didn't help. The Jews were able to overcome the Greeks and the Hellenists together. So that was a miracle. That is a description of the miracle, because now the miracle that the Greeks were powerful, that they had the Jews, Hellenists, helping the Greeks, giving them inside information, but nevertheless, the Tmeim, these Hellenists who were considered defiled because of how they weren't keeping, they were going against Hashem, they were given over in the hand of the Tmeim, those who were pure. But the miracle is even greater than that, because when Hashem does a miracle, you have to have a schus, you have to have a merit. Hashem doesn't just do a miracle for nothing. They have a schus. The Jews had the Mesiras Nefesh. But most of the Jews were not having the Mesiras Nefesh. Most of the Jews went to the Hellenists and became Hellenists. So it would seem that the Jews don't deserve a miracle, because usually you go by the majority. There's a concept of majority. The concept going by the majority is a Torah concept that we go according to the majority. So it would seem that we're not deserving of a miracle. And nevertheless, Hashem still made this tremendous miracle of Chanukah, despite the fact that the majority of the Jews were not doing what they're supposed to. So this is also part of the miracle. Today in the Yatzayim, he gave over the Tamei, the Hellenists, in the hand of the Jews who were keeping Torah, despite the fact that the Tmeim were actually majority of the Jews. The majority of the Jews were not keeping Torah mitzvahs, and would see they were not deserving of a miracle, then nevertheless Hashem still made this miracle. And the same thing is also with Yeshayim B'Yad Tzadikim. This refers to Helmus also, Yeshayim B'Yad Tzadikim. And the Zaydim that basically say the Sefer. Again, also, Zaydim, those who are intentionally, now this makes sense. Zaydim usually means those who intentionally go against Torah mitzvahs. The concept of Mazid is always used in halacha, someone who transgresses Shabbos intentionally. It's called Mazid. Now it fits in. The Jews, the Hellenists, were given over beyond Oiski Seder Sefer, those who are involved in Torah. Now, what does it mean, Oiski Seder Sefer? Oiski Seder Sefer refers to, the Rebbe explains it, it doesn't refer just to learning Torah, but it means involved in Torah, it means Torah and mitzvahs, both. The idea of ASIC being involved means that you're totally involved 24/7. And from here, the Rebbe says we have encouragement for this that we're in dollars. We sometimes think to ourselves, we're in dollars. So how is Mashiach going to come? Well, the merit of doing Torah mitzvahs, right? Keeping Torah mitzvahs. Most of the Jewish people are not keeping Torah mitzvahs. So, first, we sometimes think to himself, how do we have this schus? How is this going to happen? How are we going to bring about the glory of redemption if most of the Jewish people are not keeping Torah mitzvahs? That's the lesson of Chanukah. The lesson of Chanukah is that look what happened then. Most of the Jews were not keeping Torah mitzvahs, and nevertheless Hashem made this tremendous miracle. So to now, where it goes, even though most of the Jews are not keeping Torah mitzvahs, Hashem will still take us out of those. And the reason why, the constant majority, which usually the constant majority rules in Torah is constantly go according to majority, because majority is when we're talking about just quantity. We're talking about quality overpowers. When we keep it Torah mitzvah, that's kedusha, that comes from holiness. When it comes from holiness, that overpowers numbers. And this idea of that kedusha overpowers, even though the majority would seem to be not doing Torah mitzvahs, also applies in each person's individual avodah, and that is on a day-to-day basis. Most of the day, those who are not in yeshiva studying Torah all day, most of the day they are not involved in Torah mitzvahs. Most of the day they are they're doing business, they're eating, sleeping, whatever they need to do. They're not doing Torah mitzvahs. Nevertheless, what's the essence of a Jew? Essence of a Jew is kedusha. Why is that? Because they daven, they do Torah, but the majority of the day they're not. It doesn't matter because kedusha overpowers. Kedusha is powerful, and when a person is doing what he's supposed to, whatever the hour of the day that he's learning, the time that he's davening, that overpowers. That is what your essence is. The essence is. The essence of the Jew is Torah mitzvahs. This concept you also have in other places, but everyone doesn't bring it here. But we have the idea that from other situations, there's people who most of the day they can be involved in certain things. But where is their heart? The heart could be in certain things, like the heart, let's say, is going on vacation. Heart is a certain thing that person really, this is where he's alive. This is what he really lives for. But all he has to work is he has to. So you have the concept also in secular ideas that you can see that that's because the majority of the day you're doing a certain thing, but that's not who you really are. Like even who we really are that's our essence. Our essence is serving Hashem Torah mitzvahs. Most of us are doing other things because that's why Hashem made us. That we have to make a living, we do things we need to do, and we have a Yitzhahara, things that we like to do, whatever. But what is our essence? Our essence is Torah mitzvahs. In conclusion of the Sikha, the Rebbe says, and this is also gives encouragement to those who are doing tshuva, those who are returning to Hashem and starting to keep Torah mitzvahs, despite the fact that so many years they didn't keep Torah mitzvahs. So sometimes a person can think to himself, for the last 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, whatever, I wasn't doing keeping 10 mitzvahs. Now I'm starting to 10 mitzvahs, but the majority of my life I wasn't. So how far am I getting with this? The majority is never says that's the same lesson. That doesn't go because kedusha overcomes. When a person the kedusha is your essence, that's your essence. And that overshadows all the past years that a person did not keep Torah mitzvahs. That's the power of kedusha, the power of Torah mitzvahs. We have a lot of lessons from Chanukah. So let's see what else we need to discuss here. Any questions? Let's go back a little bit to what we discussed before about the war, about the miracle of the war. We had three levels. We have the Tzachim al-Mukama, which is on the 24th. And then we have over here. The three stages was the victory of the war was on the 24th. The jug of war was on the 25th, and the Chavav was out of birth 8 days. The Rebbe explains this is how the miracle increased more and more. They always talk about how the jug of oil increased the birth 8 days. The Rebbe explains the miracle itself. So it never says that each one corresponds to something else. The different levels in the revelation of godliness. And the Rebbe says, Chaf Dalit, connecting the pasuk Baruch Shem. The same Dalit, Baruch Shem, the words. Baruch Shem. Then we have here the Pach Shemen, that responds to Rabbi Osdoba. Write the whole word. Hashem has four letters in Hashem, keep that in mind. And when Kenu, Hashem has 4 letters. And then you have Yud K Vav. Yud, Hashem's name, which is Yud K Vav K. Yud K Vav K. Are you able to add up the numbers? Are you able to add up, count how many letters there is? How many letters do you have in Shema Yisrael? Okay. 24. Well, actually, so it's 24 letters to come down. Shema Yisrael, it's 4. You count it up, you'll see you get to 25. Yeah? Count it up, it's 25. Count 4 of them, 4, 25. And then you came up, is 26. So these are, because this explains the high levels of the revelation of godliness. And it's simply for the Tatar, for the law. Because basically, we may explain that as the miracle increased, it became revealed to us retroactively that before is also a miracle. But each level is a stronger level of godliness. You have any questions? Finished all the halachos of Chanukah. If you have any questions, we can discuss it. Otherwise, we're pretty much finished whatever we needed to discuss. Today's Teves and Chanukah, since we remember to say both the Yodlin, Nisim. You know the halachos about the chodesh. If you forget to say Yodlin, what to do? If you forget Yodlin, davening. Huh? Right, if you forget to daven, if you forget to say Yodlin, you have to repeat Shemona Esrei during the day. During the day, you have to repeat. At night, we don't. That's in general for the chodesh. Al Nisim, we don't repeat Shemona Esrei. But Yom V'Yavai, you repeat Shemona Esrei if it's the day of the chodesh, but not the night. But if you forget Yom V'Yavai, and then you remind yourself, and when do you remind yourself? Before Musaf or after Musaf? It depends when you remind yourself also. You remind yourself before you daven Musaf, you repeat the Shemona Esrei. And once you say Musaf already, you don't go over the Shachris, because in Musaf you already mentioned the chodesh. And once you already daven Musaf, you don't repeat Yahweh. You don't go back to Shachris to say Yahweh.
But you repeat it in the next month?
No.
You do it just
Usually you would, but because you already daven Musaf, you don't need to go back to Shachris even if you're able to daven Shachris.
Without Kesher Musa. If I forgot to say so the next time the next service would be
Mincha.
So Mincha say twice.
Now, did you daven Musaf?
No.
Oh, you just did Shachris. Okay, good. If you do not do Musaf and you just did Shachris, when it comes to Mincha, you're going to do two Shemona. You're going to do twice. But if you're ready to daven Musaf, you don't need to go back. Even if there's still time to daven Shachris, you don't go back anymore because you already mentioned the chodesh in Musaf, so that's it. You don't need to do anymore. And in benching, anyone knows what you do in benching? If you forget to say Nisim?
Don't know that. There's another
Nisim, you don't go back. Now, the other you also don't go back. But there's a certain place, if you remind yourself of Yahweh, you have to insert a bracha. You know what that is? You get to say, you're gonna watch today, you're gonna bench, and you realize, oh, I didn't say Yahweh. You have to repeat the benching. No, but if you finish the Bnei Yerushalayim, and you finish the bracha, and you remind yourself right then and there, before you begin the fourth bracha, the last bracha, the long one, right? You remind yourself at that point, then you insert, there's a bracha there they insert for Rosh chodesh. For Yahweh. You insert a tiny little bracha. You'll see a whole bunch in the benching. Between Brainei V'Rachum Shleim and the next bracha, there's a bunch of tiny little brachas for the chodesh. No, that's a Chanukah. No, for the chodesh, for Cholamei, for Shoshana, for Yom Tov, you have them. Once you already begin the fourth bracha, you don't do anything. You just continue. Now, Ala Nisim is different. Ala Nisim, even if you come to the end of benching, there's a place where you do a rachman. You insert a rachman, like for chodesh, for Shabbos, for Yom Tov, there's a rachman. So from there, you're going to say a rachman, and it's in the siddur, in the benching. You can find it. What you do is, when you come to the end of benching, and this is for both Chanukah and Purim, when you come to the end of benching, you remind yourself towards the end of benching. So when you get to Harachman, it's almost at the end, You say Nachman, who, Yasser. Well, when basically we're going to say Alanissim there, but you start off a little different because it's not inside a bracha. So instead of saying Vin al Hanissim Yala Purkan, you say Hanachman Yasser Lanu Nissim. Kemai. Also. Rabbi Senu, and now the rest is the same. By Yom Hakim, his Manazir, and then you say the name Matisyo. You say the whole name Matisyo. You're not going back to the beginning and like it's not when you forget Yom, you go back and then again. No, you're not going back again. You're going back to say just that part. You name Matisyo. Then you started like this. Can you see? And then you say the whole section of the main not to show until the end. And that's it. And then you continue with the benching. That's what you do. Okay, any questions? Oh, fine, no. No. Right. Yes, the minute can kind of go into the students, the minute you show table, the minute becomes part of table. Huh? What? The minute to give kind of go to the students, it's what it says.
So where am I at?
The phone call's gonna make you
Huh?
warm.
The Harakamon, if I forget.
No, don't
It's,
do
you
that.
know what you said,
I'm
I'm
gonna
thinking
do
Shabbos,
that.
the intervention, and I'll come on the.
You gotta do.
Shabbos, when we look on.
Yeah. And then right, oh yeah.